Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Second Chance live show where we're all about second chances and helping you move forward in your life. You know, there's so much negativity going on in our world that we just need some positive voices, a little dose of encouragement. And there's no better person to help us do that than Mrs. Shelley. Shelley, how you doing today?
I'm good, Daryl. How are you? Nice to see you.
You know what? I'm doing amazing. You know, today has been a productive day, so I'm feeling good. And I'm excited for our interview. You know, how did we get connected?
Clubhouse, or as some people like to refer to it as crack house. It's like you get in there and you can't leave.
It's bad, you know, and I was telling my wife that, and she says, well, that doesn't, just because everyone else is addicted don't mean you should be. And I was like, no, you just don't understand. It's like an entrepreneur's best friend. It's like what some social media is supposed to be. And you know, man, like, have you been able to set healthy boundaries?
I have. I will admit, the first week, when I had the party hat, I took full advantage of the party hat because I wanted to try to absorb as much information as I could and connect with as many people as I could. And I have to say, for me, especially during this pandemic, Clubhouse has been a bright light in terms of connection with people, just talking to other human beings. And we're getting into rooms and being able to, like, you and I are the perfect example. We never would have met had we not both been in a Clubhouse room, unless we were at some event, by chance, where we could have interacted and been introduced to one another. So for that part of it, I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, if you haven't got a Clubhouse invite yet, number one, you have to have an Apple phone. So if you don't, I mean, you probably got more problems than not being on Clubhouse. I used to be an Android guy, so now I can make that joke. And then if you need an invitation, I think I might have two that they gave me, two extra ones. And apparently they're for sale now. So everybody else is
really
just kidding.
That's interesting.
No, people are legit selling these, right? I'm not doing that. Like, if I know you, I got you.
Yeah.
Just hit me up. So you got to have my cell number though. But yeah, so anyways, it's a phenomenal app. And, I want to get into this conversation today, and I want to welcome everyone who's joining us live. This is the Second Chance Live Show. I'm your host, Daryl Stinson. I am a former Division I athlete, a 2-time TEDx speaker, and I like to say a suicide survivor who has now found a greater appreciation for life. And so, man, we're excited. I'm going to read her bio. And while I do that, you guys know the drill. Hit the share button. Why? Because she's agreed to give her time to us. And the way that you help spread light and love is by clicking the share button, because a rising tide raises all ships. And that will notify all your friends that this is information worth listening to. So Miss Shelley is an international coach, professional coach. She's got training. She's not one of these people who just call herself a life coach and just puts it on her bio. She actually has formally training from ACC, right? Is that correct?
It's actually Coach U, International Coach Federation is the governing body, and then they have credentials.
That's super legit. Dang, you make me feel like I need to stop coaching people.
No, not at all. I just like having letters behind my name.
You know what? I need to go get my master's degree just for that reason. My wife has hers, but she's a bookworm,
I think you're doing just fine, Daryl.
Were you an all-A student in school?
No, I was not.
You weren't? Okay.
B. B's get degrees too.
Bees get degrees too. Shelley specializes in creating a culture that promotes inclusivity and belonging and builds resilience to nurture peak performance in athletes, leaders, and teams. So you're definitely going to want to draw from her wisdom today. She integrates her specialized training and diverse experience as a Division I basketball player and coach, also a parent of 2 Division I players and college basketball analyst for Fox Sports, Big Ten Network. We forgive her for that. All of my CMU fans, and Learfield Sports. She uses a unique 4-lens view into the world of athletics to offer diversity of experience and thought to help coaches better understand how to intentionally, that's important, intentionally, it doesn't just happen accidentally, intentionally create a culture that is safe, inclusive, builds grit, and improves performance. She believes that peak performance shouldn't come at the expense of emotional well-being. Oh, that makes me excited. Therefore, she also works with athletes to overcome anxiety, improve emotional flexibility, and build what we're going to talk about today, grit muscle, to achieve full potential. She's also the host of Too Much to Quit. I can't even say it right. Too Much to Quit podcast, Too Much Grit to Quit podcast.
You got to sing it.
Too much. Do you
legit.
sing it?
No, I'm
Like
saying
too legit to quit.
Legit. There you go.
I got you. Too much grit. I can't even say it's a tongue. It's the grit. My G's are messed up. I need to go to speech class. My point is that she's amazing. And if you want to connect with her, you can learn more on her website right there, shelleytill.com. Shelley, I'm done yakking now. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about your journey through sports.
Well, thank you, Daryl. I appreciate you bringing me on today, and it's an honor to be here. And I think one of the things that really connected us is that we both have a passion for helping athletes and coaches create that better environment, whether that's internally or externally. And so for me, as you mentioned in the intro, I played college basketball at the Division I level. I like to refer to myself as a first generation NCAA athlete, because I played back in the day when the NCAA first became the governing body for women's basketball. And at the time, there was, it was a lot of female coaches that were coaching and that might have been in their, maybe were a couple years older than the athletes, clearly in their first professional role, and not a lot of female role models to look up to know how to do it and how to interact with athletes and, just the outside of the X's and O's. I call it the inner game. And so we just kind of had to put up with a lot of things that thankfully aren't even legal today, to be perfectly frank.
Yeah.
And so, I learned a lot of lessons from that, definitely built a lot of resilience and a lot of grit, but it cost me a lot emotionally too. I ended up transferring 2 times. So I was at 3 universities and my brag is that I still graduated in 4 years after attending 3 universities. You gotta look at the bright side.
Yeah, really. That's an accomplishment.
And then once I graduated from college, went into the college coaching ranks and was in that and out, in and out of it due to getting married, having a family, but was able to experience being a head coach, being an assistant coach at all different levels from Division III to Division I. And so after that, when I had kids, I decided that it was time to shift gears and focus mainly on my children. And so that's when I kind of went backwards. I started at Division I level, and then I worked my way into youth sports. So, but I also found my love for broadcasting, and that was kind of the sweet spot for me because it allowed me to be active, to still study the game, to be around high achievers and high performers, pick the brains of coaches, tell the stories of athletes, and call basketball games, be in the excitement of the environment, and go home and go to sleep and be able to sleep because I didn't have to worry about the outcome of the game as a coach. And then my love of coaching athletes and of just helping people realize their full potential is what led me to get into coaching as a profession and get my certification officially through International Coach Federation. And I've been working in this field for about 15 years.
Wow. So coaching individuals through transformation is not an easy task by any means. People have to overcome limiting beliefs and you have to hold them accountable and you have to help them discover their own genius. What would you say makes a great coach?
Ooh, that's a great question. In terms of athletics or in terms of what I do?
In terms of what you do.
Okay. I think definitely you have to have the ability to be a great listener to be a good coach. And a lot of people think coaching is tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm confused. I want to make a change. I need you to tell me what to do. And that's really not our role. Our role is to be a great listener, ask a lot of great questions, go alongside the journey with you, collaborate with you to develop a new story. And because really everybody that comes to a coaching relationship has a story that they have been, and it's like their default operating system. It's how they've programmed their life. Yeah. And it's not working for some reason. It's just not working for them. And they want different, they want better. And so my role as a coach is to help kind of reprogram and write a new story for that individual. But you as the the co-collaborator, you know what you want, you know what's in there, and it's in there. It's just sometimes we need that special, safe, non-judgmental, someone who doesn't really have skin in the game other than they want to help us be better, to go alongside of us. You know, you're an athlete, I'm an athlete. We grow up having coaches all the time. And some are good, some aren't. And some are inspiring and help you to become a better person. And then all of a sudden we get out of athletics and go into the professional world and try to raise families and have relationships and become better people. And we're trying to do it all alone. And so the impact and the power that a coach can have on your life it's incredible. And it truly is one of the things. I have a coach still to this day that helps me through things. And so I think just having that person who can be your cheerleader, who can be your accountability partner, who can help you, like I said, write that new story is so, so important as a coach.
Yeah, I love it. We live out the story that we tell ourselves. And I always say it this way to people who are like, oh, I don't know, because the thing is, and I wasn't joking when I read your bio that like the term life coach has become so convoluted, right? And it's messing it up for the good ones, right? And like everybody just is putting life coach on their things and they have like no life experience. But I digress. But it is, now I lost my train of thought. Oh God. Oh well, I forgot. It'll come back later. Oh, such a good question. It's such a good question. Anyways, we'll come back to it. But I so agree with everything you were saying. And it really is hard to get a person to discover their own genius. Talk to me about this. What if someone's sitting here and they know that there's more inside of them and they just don't know how to make their dreams come to pass? What would maybe be some initial questions that you would ask them to help break through?
Well, I think one of the things that I like to ask, I actually like to have people do a little activity, if you will, and it's a writing thing, and it's not like a dissertation or anything. It's just thinking back to your life, and we kind of chunk it 10 years at a time. If you could write down the stories that you remember, the times when you felt really on fire, times when you felt happy, times when you felt motivated, when you felt accomplished, and look for patterns in what was going on in your life at that time. And then same thing, times in your life that, things happen that you don't ever want them to happen again, and what was going on and what was the feelings that you were feeling, and really getting into the emotion, because really what people want is to feel different emotions. We all say, I just want to be happier. Well, what is happier? Tell me a time when you were happier, and what were you really feeling? Let's dig down and deep into that. Was it accomplishment? Was it contentment? Was it peace? Was it joy? What were the real feelings? And then how can we recreate those experiences where you can feel more of those emotions?
Yeah, I love that. That's funny. I never really thought of it that way. I'm a results guy. I'm like, they want more money, they want more stages, but it is that creates a sense of feeling. See, I should have went to the certification program. Man, talk about your transition out of sports. That's something that is obviously very hard for a lot of people. And there's a lot of athletes due to COVID-19 who are experiencing it when they might not have had to experience it. What would you say, some advice, some tips to that transition? And what was yours like?
Well, I can talk to you very personally about what's going on with COVID-19. My son, I have, as you mentioned in the open, 2 kids that both played Division I basketball. My daughter graduated from the University of Iowa in 2016. And then my son, right behind her, played at the University of Iowa. He graduated in, wait a minute. Yeah. I always get their years messed up. He just graduated from Iowa last spring. So that means he was one of those seniors who was sitting and getting ready to go play in the Big Ten tournament, and they canceled everything. Like literally they had get their bags packed, ready to go to the gym to compete in the first round of the tournament, and everything was called off due to COVID. And so I'll never forget that day. It's like I'll remember that day the way I remember where I was on 9/11. And so it was that impactful, because I walked into the hotel where the guys were staying, and it was like someone died. And truly, I don't mean to say that to, I mean, I understand the severity of COVID and the death is real, but these young men were experiencing a death of a season, and that's just the only way you can explain it. And so,
Right.
And on top of it, you've got the guys who are seniors, that this was it for them.
Mm-hmm.
There is no other chance. There's no coming back to do it over. And so it was doubly dramatic, doubly traumatic, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And so on top of that, as they come back to the university, the entire campus is shut down. Mm-hmm. So there are no friends around to congregate with. There's no one that they can really process through those emotions with.
Right.
It was get back, pack your stuff, and then come home. Mm-hmm. And I always joke, but I'm like, what senior doesn't want to live with their mom the last semester of their college career? Jokingly. Mm-hmm. So he came back here, and it was tough. He would tell you the same thing. It was a lot of ups and downs. It was, why did this happen? We had to go through the grieving process, and I know and teach about that. But we had to allow each other to feel what we were feeling. And so I actually, the first couple of days were kind of just, he didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to do anything, didn't want to eat a lot. And so, that depression, those depressive kind of characteristics start to set in. And so what we ended up doing was, we just did it's really simple, but we did a daily check-in. And every day I would ask, what's your battery level? What's your energy level? Just like on your phone, what's your number? Where are you today? And what is the dominant emotion that you feel today? Mm-hmm. It could be anything. And just those two questions allowed him the space to sit with those emotions, to identify those emotions, and to be okay, that it was okay. You don't have to stuff them down. You don't have to suck it up. Mm. You don't have to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. There'll be time for that later. But right now we need to feel what you're feeling. Right. And so that was really helpful for both of us, quite frankly, to process through that. And there were days when he'd say, you know what, I'm really pissed off. I'm mad. I'm angry that this is happening. Why is this happening? We had, so much to look forward to, and it was just ripped away from us. And then there were days that he just was like, meh. And then there were days that he was, you know what, Mom, I'm feeling pretty good today. I'm feeling like there's hope here. So once we got to hope, I knew we were onto something. And so what ended up happening, Daryl, was that he finally opened up the possibility to playing again, because he still had a year of eligibility left. And so because of that, he put himself into the transfer portal, and he, reached out to his coaches for help, and he started accepting phone calls and talking to other universities. And then where he is today is he ended up accepting a scholarship offer to play as a graduate transfer at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo in the Big West Conference, and he's getting his master's degree.
How awesome.
So yeah, so it all worked out really well. And I tell that story because it is so new, it's so raw, and so many young men and women are dealing with that even now.
Yeah. And I thank you for that transparency. That's why I like you. There's two things that I was like, I got to ask her about on the show. One is about your passion for inclusivity, and talk about that, and how, you got a unique process, sounds like, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about that process. And then the other thing that I cannot forget to ask you is just about, the emotional well-being of athletes, and how important that is, and how we can, as leaders and the sports industry, can better support the emotional well-being of our athletes. So I'd love to hear your opinion on both of those things. So let's start with the athletes thing, since we're still in that vein, and you just shared that story about your son. Yeah. What's your opinion? I mean, you've got a lot of experience, you got sons, you got your own experience, you've been an analyst before. What's your experience on how can the sports industry better support the emotional well-being of athletes?
Well, I think it's just like anything. It starts within your team. It starts within your family. It starts within you. Right. And so I think I like to approach it for the athlete and through the coach, because to me, the coach is the key. The leader is always the key. And if the leader is not emotionally regulated, if the leader doesn't think that that's important, or if the leader is always in a fight or flight mode, then they're going to that's going to affect the team, right? It's going to they're going to take on the personality. It's like attitude reflects leadership, right? From Remember the Titans, by the way, my favorite movie ever. But I think that I think it's so important. And there are tools that you can utilize, simple things like breath work. And I know it sounds so silly, but it's so important, because what ends up happening is, let's talk about the opposite of emotional well-being and emotional regulation. And that's you've lost your mind. And we've all been there as an athlete. We've all seen coaches. I coached, and I've been there as a coach, where the camera goes into the huddle and the coach is screaming into the faces of the athletes, red-faced, and some athletes can handle that. Some people can take that. But the reason they can handle and take that is because that coach has built up the trust in that athlete. They have built a relationship with that athlete, just like a great parent does with a child. You nurture that child and bring them up in a way that if something happens where there needs to be a come to Jesus meeting, that they're going to look at you and go, okay. But if that build up, if that nurturing of the athlete hasn't happened, then that attack, because that's what the body receives that as an attack. If we don't have that safe space internally or externally that has been created, and through, like I said, through nurturing and through repetition and consistency, then they're just going to shut down.
Yeah.
And you can see it. Their faces go blank. And there's a reason. It's not because they're being disrespectful. It's because internally, from an autonomic nervous system standpoint, they can't take on everything that's coming at them. There's your auditory system. They're trying to see you visually. They're trying to absorb the environment that they're in, and the feeling and the energy in the room, and it's too much. So something has to shut down, right? And so what happens is, if an athlete hasn't developed that emotional flexibility, if they're not able to handle those emotions, then they go offline, they shut down, they're going to mess up on the court, and the same thing for a coach. So simply breathing, it's where I tell everybody to start, because it's the easiest thing to do, because we're always on go, 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 go. So I have a practice called 4-5-6 breathing, because it's easy to remember. You inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 5, exhale for 6. Another really easy way to describe it is just inhale and exhale and double your exhale. So if you're going to inhale for 5 seconds, you're going to exhale for 10. And you really want that breath to get low into your abdomen. And you want to do that, practice it throughout the day.
Right.
What I do is another thing is it's called awareness. It's an awareness alarm, if you will, where you can set a reminder on your phone or on your device or whatever, and just literally check in with yourself. And so, just like I said, what I did with my son, whatever you're doing, stop what you're doing and immediately go, okay, how am I feeling right now? Am I tense? Where do I feel anything in my body? Because for me, I know when I get, stressed, I start to feel it in my shoulders and my neck. And inevitably I'll be like, oh, wow, my shoulders are up by my ears. And so just recognizing where you're kind of holding that stress, because we all hold our emotions in our body. And if you can start to recognize that, then you can start to name it. What is this? Why am I feeling this way? Is it anxiety? Is it stress? Am I frustrated? Am I angry with something? Naming it. And then you can say, do I need to be doing this? Like, investigate. Why am I doing this? Is it valid? Am I telling myself a story? And then nurture it. And that breathing, that breath work is just one of a whole slew of ways that I have that you can help to it's like a rubber band, the more we can stretch it out and without it snapping, the better. Bend, don't break, I call it.
Bend, don't break. Wow. That is a plethora of wisdom. You're super smart.
Well,
and
I've been told a lot of things. I don't know that that's one of them. So thank you.
And while we're here, I know you have this thing, the Nero meter, and I love, or excuse me, you call the Nero Mentor, right? I'd love to learn more about that. because I was really curious when I was looking at the website.
Yeah. So Nero Mentor Institute for Peak Performance is the long name of it. And it's the website is neuromentorinstitute.com. And that is a collaboration that I'm doing with Dr. David Kruger. And he's just a phenomenal person. His list of accolades is way too long for me to even go into. But what I can tell you is I met him when I did training with him. And I got my wellness certification training, wellness coaching certification with him.
Gotcha.
He has published 27 books. I think he's got 75 published research papers. He is a neuropsychiatrist by training and worked in the medical field for a long, long time, and then transitioned into the coaching world. And he's one of the most well-renowned international executive coaches out there. He just won from the Institute of Training Professionals, I think it is, the 2020 Executive Coach of the Year award. And so I'm just honored to be part of it. It's a collaboration that we put together. He does a lot of training with in the wellness field and in the financial industry, works with CEOs of companies. He's worked with the women's national tennis team and a lot of other athletes that cannot be named because apparently he's their secret weapon. So we worked together on a collaborative peak performance training program, and specifically targeted for athletic coaches and athletes, because it takes the brain mind sciences and puts it to practice in practical ways that coaches can implement every single day. And what I love about it is we have, as part of the program, there are 3 playbooks. And so the first playbook is geared toward the coach. And it's, we can't stop learning as coaches, and we can't stop trying to be better, because when we're better people and better for ourselves, we're better for everyone around us.
Absolutely.
So that focuses on the coach. Then the playbook 2 is the coach-player relationship, and playbook 3 is for the athlete. And it really focuses in on taking it to the next level, that elite performer. And how do you handle those super stressful situations when everything is on the line? And then along with the playbooks, there are 7, I believe, webinars. And then I have a bonus content webinar in there where I talk about the power of 2 coaches about the power of connection and why it's so important that they have connection with their athletes if they want to create that environment for them to reach their peak performance, their full potential.
Wow. So here's a better question: is what don't you do? Wow. So impressed by that. And I found that very interesting. And I was like, man, this seems like some deep stuff over here that they've got going. So let's talk about
what's great about it is you can take it's like sciencey, but it's practical, and it makes sense, and it's proven. It's not just some theory that somebody's throwing out here going, oh yeah, you should try this. Like this works.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's shift gears a little bit, and let's go ahead and talk about inclusivity. By the way, guys, I'm interviewing Shelley, and she's amazing. She's a coach, she's a consultant, she's a former basketball player, she's been an analyst before. She's all things. Like, the hardest thing is trying to figure out what she's not great at. And so she has this passion for inclusivity. And we're going to talk about that. So right now is the time for you to hit the share button. And if you're just joining us, it's okay. You can go watch the replay. You missed some gold nuggets, but we still got some gold to share with you moving forward. So Shelley, I'd love for you to talk about your passion. And I know that you do some training around that area, and I would love to hear how we can improve.
So my passion for inclusivity is, I look at it as it's a piece of the puzzle, right? I created an assessment called the DIBS assessment. It's diversity, inclusion, belonging, and safety. And it goes beyond what does your team look like? Where do they come from? What is their background? It goes beyond inviting them in to have a seat at the table or a chair on the bench. It goes into, how do you make them feel like they belong in this system? And how do you create that? The safety piece is on psychological safety.
Wow.
And
Wow. Wow. Well, hold on a second. Wait. Whoa. That's intriguing. Like, where did you come up with that concept from? Like, I mean, what's the why behind it? I know you're going to get into some nuts and bolts, but I mean, I can hear like this thought that went into, hey, I want to actually provide a solution to the problems that are happening.
Yeah.
Like, what was that awakening moment for you where you were aware that, hey, this type of inclusivity doesn't exist enough, and I want to help?
So it started from my own experience as a college athlete, not
Okay.
feeling like I belonged anywhere, not feeling
Why
safe.
not?
I just didn't feel safe to be able to make mistakes. I didn't feel safe to be who I wanted to be or who I thought I was when I showed up there. To step on the court as myself, to be fully me. I didn't feel like, it was a lot of the culture then, and this was in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, was very punitive. So it was, you do this or else, it was kind of that kind of mentality. It was the coaching with an iron fist kind of thing. And I got to the point where I really struggled, like big time struggled with depression. As I look back on it, it wasn't diagnosed. We didn't do that back then.
Right.
That's why I bounced from school to school, because I was just looking for a place to fit in.
Wow.
And then fast forward in my career, and I've seen so much from a broadcaster standpoint. And I love when I come across a coach who is creating that environment. You can just tell the athletes are thriving. They love being there.
Yeah.
But a couple things happened that really led me to want to do a deeper dive into this. One was much like your story. I was calling, this was 3 years ago. There was a young woman who was an athlete, women's basketball player at Northwestern University. And over Christmas break, committed suicide in her dorm room. And I went to that because I had to call their next game that they played after this. And so I was in the area where her funeral happened in her wake. And so I went to it, and it was absolutely devastating to sit and watch, all of these young women in their 20s who loved this girl. And it wasn't just her team. It was other teams that were there, the competitors, if you will. And they were absolutely devastated because this young woman was in a place that was so horrible to her in her brain and her story that she thought the only way out of that pain was to end her life. And so I just thought something has to be done here.
Right.
Something has to be done, because she's not alone in the way she feels. I know that there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that go through those. It doesn't mean you're that way all the time, but it only takes a split second to make that decision. And so fast forward into this summer, when this was right after the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And you and I and everybody listening knows how that affected this country, and just the raw emotion that everyone had. And I looked at my community of coaches and of people in the athletic world, and so many of them were hurting. And then I looked at the young men and women who didn't know what to do with all of that. I mean, we're in the middle of a freaking pandemic. They're locked out of their gyms. They're not able to be around their teammates. No one at that point was really practicing or doing anything. Most of these kids were at home. And so not only are they dealing with that and the trauma of that and the emotion of that, and now we've got to deal with this just in your face racial injustice. And so I immediately reached out to some of my colleagues and said, we have to do something. And so I'm not kidding. This happened in a day. I texted a group of people. We got on Zoom, and that night we had come up with, we made a series of virtual coaches clinics to talk about how to have courageous conversations with your athletes. Because again, the key is the leader. The key is the coach. What are you doing right now? Even if you're not in the same state as your athletes, they need you now more than ever. So we had a panel of coaches. We had some former athletes on the panel, and then people just called, like this, logged in on Zoom, and we had a conversation about it. And there was there were no holds barred, no judgment, no question was too off to ask, no, nothing political, just, and then I brought in a couple speakers, a male and a female athlete of color who could talk about their experience and what it's like to be a Black athlete, what it's like to be a Black person living in the United States and the stuff that they've had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And the stories were heart-wrenching and they were also extremely eye-opening. And so I think the goal was for coaches to understand the impact of what I always talk about is your history plus your environment determines your behavior, and to understand that historical piece and why, why athletes feel the way they feel about this and why you need to pay attention and why you need to step in as a leader and be willing to listen and to hear them and to help them create that safe space where they can just process those emotions at a bare minimum. And then, so this assessment that I created takes a deeper dive into that, right? It's like, that was all great, but like everything, it's like, okay, we did this, check the box. Now let's move on. This is not a check the box issue. This is something that needs to be dealt with on a day-to-day basis. I mean, your mental well-being and your emotional well-being isn't something that I just talk to you about one day in my office and then check it off and you're good to go. It's no different than I'm not going to teach you how to shoot free throws one day and then never ask you to practice it again. Chances are you're not going to make too many of those.
Right.
So I wanted to create a tool that, because coaches were into stats, right? I wanted to create a tool that quantified that for people, so we could get a pulse, we could get a number, a read on where are your athletes in your team. And so this assessment asks them a series of questions. It's ranked on a Likert scale, and they get a readout. They get a stat sheet that shows individual athlete scores anonymously, and it collectively shows your team scores. And then you can also divide them out by your minority athletes. You can divide it out by age level or grade level. And I'm working on an addition to it to add the ACEs scores into it, meaning the adverse childhood events experienced, because that has a big effect on how we perceive our environment. And that's what this is. It's a perception tool. It's a snapshot in time. But what it's done is it's given information, and information is power for coaches. And it has given athletes a voice that they otherwise might not be willing to speak up and say, because it protects them. It's anonymous.
Wow. Kudos to you, and thank you for walking that territory and making an impact in that environment and facilitating those discussions and those webinars. And because I know that that's not an easy environment to do, because I when the George Floyd stuff happened, I think because of my influence as a leader, my experience as an athlete, and then the fact that I'm in an interracial marriage, I went on I got a bunch of radio and television requests, right? And some of it was PR. Like, I get it. Like, people just want to say, well, we're going to reach out to Black people so that we are not considered. And I was like, fine, I'll take the opportunity to make a difference with my voice. And, it was a tough line to walk. It really was. And I'm unique because one of the things I said on, and I know this is not the route that we were taking, but we're here now. So, one of the things that I would say often that would ruffle a lot of feathers was, I told them, if we're going to get racism out of America, we got to get it out of white America and Black America. And Black people don't want to hear that. and I know you can't say that because you might get a different response because of the color of your skin, but I can say it. Right. And I would say it on the tail end of saying this. I've been called nigger more times than I would like to admit. I've been chased down by an angry white mob, almost lost my life. I've been judged by the color of my skin. I literally have talked to someone on the phone and they've been excited to talk to me. And then they meet me in person for an interview and the life gets sucked out of the room. I've been told some horrible things about some, particularly one white woman that I dated. Her parents literally told her if we ever had kids that they would pretend that they were babysitting them and not that they were their own grandchildren. So I've had a ton of hurtful things said. I said, my last name is actually a slave name, and it comes from a plantation that's not too far from where I live now in Metro Atlanta. And so I would say all that and say, but if we're going to get racism out of America, we got to get it out of Black America and white America, right? So, and that's so important to me, because growing up, there was this unspoken rule that we weren't supposed to date white people. like, and it was like, I don't think that's the goal or the objective here. Like, on one end, we can't say, don't leave us out and include us. And then at the same time say, let's leave them out and exclude them, And so anyways, that's my 2 cents there. And I don't want to go there anymore, but my point is, I know that it's a tough line to walk, and it's hard not to get roped into politics, and it's hard not to hurt feelings, but you had the tough conversation. So thank you for doing that, man.
Well, and I want to say, it's not, for me, like I said, when I started that, it goes so much beyond the D&I part of it. To me, the real deal, the real change comes in the belonging and the safety.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The change comes when you can have that connection with your teammate, when you can have that connection coach to player, that really makes me, the athlete, feel like I belong here. Like, I can be myself here, and it's celebrated. I don't have to, hide my past. I don't have to hide the color of my skin. I don't have to hide my preference in music. And that if I do make a mistake, whether it's on the court or off, I'm not going to get blasted for it.
Right.
And, yelled at up one side and down the other, and shamed and judged to death, to the point that I feel like I'm not even a human being anymore. And so to me, that's the real, and I know, the majority of coaches are good, and they're in it for the right reasons, but it always amazes coaches to see the results of this, because there's like, oh, I didn't realize that was the message, or I didn't realize that's how they felt. Right. And what can I now, not just that, but now what can I do about it? It's no different than at the end of the game, you get your stat sheet and you look and you're like, oh my goodness, we had 20 turnovers. That's ridiculous. Like, we can't function as a team with 20 turnovers. How do I get better at that? So you go back to practice, and you implement the skills, and you implement the drills, and you do them on a daily basis, and you come together and you work together as a team, because there's a bigger power and purpose at play.
Wow. Love. Man, I could talk to you all day. We've got so much in common that it's like, I can geek out on athlete transition. I can geek out on mental health. I can geek out on diversity and inclusion and all that stuff. And so we could talk for hours, but I know that typically when I start to pass the 45-minute mark, people start tuning out, and I want them to get the gold. I don't want them to look and say they talked for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I don't have time to watch it. I want them to watch this. So let's land this plane, Shelley. And
all right.
Let's do the Darryl. I haven't done the Darryl this episode, so it's time to do the Darryl. Okay. Doing the Darryl means that I'm going to ask you a completely random question that just comes to me in the moment, and I follow my heart and my intuition and my spirit, and we just go with it. So, let's see. Let's play a game.
Okay.
So what's your favorite team, like sports team?
Professional or college?
It doesn't matter.
Well, I'll say the San Francisco 49ers right now.
Okay. We forgive you. So the 49ers, right? The stadium is packed full of people of all different backgrounds. I mean, you got athletes and politicians and famous entertainers, and people from all over the world are there, packed into the stadium, and they're broadcasting it live, and you are the only speaker of the night. And you've got 5 minutes or less to share a message. What do you share?
What topic do I share?
Yeah. What do you say?
I think I share. That's a really great question. And this might sound really corny. But honestly, I think what I would share is, how can we just show up every day and love each other better? Like today, especially in the world we live in this country that we're living in, I just wish people would just show up and love each other
Mm-hmm.
and just put your ugliness and your differences and your opinions and your crappy emotions aside. Like, we weren't created to act like this. And I just, I'm a Christian woman, and I just think that we have made the Lord weep in our actions in this country, in the last year. And we're better than that. I like to think we're better than that. And so my message would be just one of hope and love each other better.
Love it. Love it. And thank you for doing that so well. Shelley, this has been amazing. If someone's sitting here, I know we mentioned it a couple times, but if they're at this point in the episode and they're like, man, she's the best thing since sliced bread, I want a piece of that bread. Like, how do I connect with her? Where do they go to connect with you?
My website is right at the bottom, shelleytill.com. And there's a link there. You can email me, or my direct email is shelley@shelleytill.com. But don't forget the EY.
I almost forgot that in the graphic that we created. And I was like, dang. And I was like, nope, I got it. So
that's why I put it up there, because it happens like 9 times out of 10. So you're not alone.
Yeah. Same thing with my name. I mean, people butcher my name. I get the E and the, one L, one R, like whatever. So,
well, we do get to continue this conversation, because you're going to come on my podcast, hopefully sometime in the next week. And so you'll get to be on my Too Much Grit to Quit podcast. That's another
Too Much Grit to Quit. There we go. I said it. Too much grit to quit. I feel good about myself now. I'm not gonna lie. I really feel good about myself. So, wow. You know what? One more do the Daryl thing. You were so amazing. I think that I'm gonna go out with a little bit of. You want to go out and bang? You want to go song, or you want to go sad? What do you want? Let's go song. Here we go. Here we go. I think here we go. We're supposed to be going right now.
I'm impressed.
Do you know what they say? That we can't make it this way. No, they told us that we'll never make it, but they don't know the God we serve.
I came out the womb defying stats. They was like, I don't know about that. I came out the streets defying stats. They was like, I don't know about that. Don't know about that. Don't know about that. Don't know about that. We still defying stats. Don't know about that. Don't know about that. Don't know about that. We still defying stats. They label me a statistic, I think they missed it. Selling drugs just to make a living. I was dealt a bad hand, but I still ripped it. I turned a couple of ounces into a whole business. You couldn't tell your boy nothing, I was so driven. Trying to make it to the league, headed straight to prison. It's crazy what we go through to get what we want, while creating a life we don't. Stupid.
Do you know what they say?
All right. I'm done now. Thank you for indulging me. This has been amazing, guys. If you're tuning into this and you just listen to my craziness and Shelley's expertise, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Choose one thing that you're going to take and implement it into your life. And we would so love to hear how this episode has impacted your life. Hit us up at secondchanceathletes.com. Go connect with Shelley, and let's remember that your best days are always in front of you and never behind you. Peace.
Thanks, Daryl.